Hey guys, my name is Isaiah Harwood, and today I want to talk to you about graphic design in the film and entertainment industry. So it should come as no surprise that directors and game designers alike are definitely stepping up the visual artistry of their productions. And as props and assets and levels have become more and more complex in order to create the illusion of increasingly realistic fictional worlds, more and more graphic designers are actually beginning to find work in sort of unusual ways designing for these hidden worlds in the entertainment industry. So anything from forged driver's licenses to handcrafted title cards to illustrated maps. The key to fooling an audience into believing what they are seeing is real is actually in the meticulous details. Even if a prop is only on screen for a few seconds or the asset is hidden in the background of a level, the viewer will still see it, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. So whether or not the tediously heroic amount of work that goes into designing these objects and props is acknowledged, these painstaking details are what truly make the story and these worlds come to life. So Wes Anderson, if you've never heard of Wes Anderson before, he's known for his sort of quirky, very symmetrical, and extremely detailed films. And he's made it a point actually to hire an entire team of graphic designers in all of his movies. So whether you know it or not, you've probably seen at least one or two of Wes's uniquely artistic films already, from the critically acclaimed The Grand Budapest Hotel and his older film The Life Aquatic, to his more recent work, which actually delves into traditional stop motion techniques such as Fantastic Mr. Fox, and his latest film, the Japanese-inspired Isle of Dogs. Wes's signature style is completely unmistakable across the mediums and the cultures that he works in. So aside from the director's stern attention to detail, many of Wes Anderson's films actually have graphic designers to thank for their eloquently elaborate world building. Annie Atkins, actually, who was a lead designer on the Wes Anderson film The Grand Budapest Hotel, which you can see in the top right there. She was sort of thrust into the spotlight after the critical success of that film in 2014 when it went on to win the Academy Award for Best Production Design. So, yeah, Annie Atkins has become somewhat of a spokesperson for graphic designers in film after the release of her latest book, Fake Love Letters, Forged Telegrams, and Prison Escape Maps, Designing Graphic Props for Filmmaking, where she describes sort of how she stumbled upon the opportunity to design props for directors such as Steven Spielberg and Wes Anderson, and what it's like being a graphic designer, just working in the film and entertainment industry. In Jeff Goldblum's own words, who was actually a longtime Wes Anderson collaborator, Annie Atkins is a master craftswoman. She makes the unreal seem hyperreal and the real more supremely alive. And I know we weren't supposed to include direct quotes in our presentations, but I thought Goldblum summed it up perfectly, the job of a graphic designer in film, as making these fantastic worlds feel as real as our own and to make the ordinary seem extraordinary, to put it simply. So in order to create these period accurate pieces of design and convince the viewers that what they're seeing is actually handmade, it shouldn't come as any surprise that Annie's workflow is entirely analog. She doesn't use computers. She sort of sees human error as the secret ingredient to her authentic graphic props, and part of the reason she refuses to work digitally. She describes the role of the designer as someone who yearns to correct, organize, and perfect things, but human error and the little mistakes that we make as imperfect beings are actually what keep these stylized, fantastical worlds of film alive. The reality of human error in handmade props is often more interesting than what an Adobe Photoshop filter could accomplish in a fraction of the time, and that's sort of what makes Annie's work stand out on the big screen. And in an increasingly digital world, it's become more and more rare for designers to work by hand. And so it's sort of a daring act that Annie takes a lot of pride in not using a computer for her designs. But the role of a designer in the entertainment industry actually doesn't stop it with film. Designers actually work for cartoons and shows as well. One graphic designer named Annie Ristiano, actually, who actually works as a character designer for the Pendleton Ward series Adventure Time. He plays a surprisingly vital role in the graphic design of that series. And if you've never seen an episode of Adventure Time, it's a very mesmerizing, surreal, and sort of meticulously story driven masterwork of Pendleton Ward, who is a sort of animation genius and legend. And it's everything that a coming-of-age cartoon should consist of, you know? It should come as no surprise that a work of art on this large of a scale employs the talents of a graphic designer or two. So Andy Risciano was actually hired by Pendleton Ward, the creator of the show, as lead character designer. But in the making of the first season, Risciano actually found himself illustrating the title cards of each episode, which had become sort of a staple of this show. And, you know, Andy Risciano's role as designer made him responsible for transporting the audience into these wonderful, quirky, and strange post-apocalyptic world of Adventure Time. And although the show's graphic design may not be the first thing that fans gravitate towards, much like the Annie Atkins designs in the Wes Anderson films, the graphic design of these productions affects the overall feel and atmosphere, you know, as it's perceived by the audience, whether it's consciously or subconsciously noticed by the viewers again. You know, graphic designers in these productions can come from sort of unexpected places and hold roles that you wouldn't necessarily immediately think of when you think of graphic designers. And another guy who sort of found himself designing for the entertainment industry is Ken Wong. And he actually found himself designing for the game industry as a graphic designer. He was actually lead designer and creative director of the mobile game Monument Valley. If you've never heard of Monument Valley, it's an illustrious architectural and pretty calming mobile game, and it actually won an Apple Design Award and 2 Unity Awards for its gorgeous color schemes and very artful game design. You know, and the game features these sort of MC Escher style optical illusions and geometry-based fantasy worlds, which is unlike any other mobile game that I've seen, and it actually inspired a lot of similar games like it. But you know, the game's success has Ken Wong's artistic vision and design to thank for its success. And Ken Wong's mission as a designer in the video game industry actually goes beyond choosing nice colors and creating satisfying levels for users. And as creative director at Us2 Games in London, Ken Wong says his team is still working to overcome the perception largely held by the public that games are not as expressive or as important as films and books. And Wong actually hopes to use his design skills to make games more accessible and forward-thinking and beautiful in general. And, you know, while Annie Atkins and Andy Risciano may have advocated for the handmade and shaking off their digital instincts in their design workflows, make no mistake about it, you know, Ken Wong is a digital designer. And Wong describes his essential tools as Pinterest, Adobe Photoshop, Unity, and sometimes whiteboards. That's the only time he'll work by hand. And surprisingly, Ken Wong doesn't actually consider his presence as a graphic designer in the video game industry as unusual. And, you know, Wong describes games as a young art form that still hasn't been fully taken advantage of. And as a graphic designer, he he wants to advance the role of games and sort of widen the audience that experiences these games. You know, as graphic designers migrate into these various roles in the industry outside of advertising and brand design, these guys bring with them their keen sense of aesthetics and design thinking. You know, I don't think their roles should get overlooked. So, sort of in conclusion, you know, the goal of a graphic designer in any role is to breathe life and personality and purpose into the things that they design across industries and mediums. The fact remains true, and many directors, game designers, and animators alike are beginning to realize what graphic designers can bring to their productions, and the painstaking details, the subtle sense of realism, and the research that goes into designing for the entertainment industry is sort of the man behind the curtain, so to speak, when it comes to what elevates a film or game or show into a work of art. So thanks for listening, guys. I can't wait to hear what you think.